So, how does a tiny island nation turn into one of the world's biggest financial powerhouses? Well, it definitely doesn't happen by accident. See, in this global race for money and talent, Singapore has this masterfully written playbook. And right at the heart of it is a really powerful strategy: financial incentives. Let's break down how this playbook works and, maybe more importantly, the huge challenges it's facing right now. First, I want you to look at this number because it puts everything into perspective: 26.7%. That's the share of Singapore's entire corporate tax collection that comes from just one place, the finance and insurance sector. It's a staggering figure, and it really shows you just how vital this single industry is to the country's finances. Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll zoom out and get a sense of the massive scale of Singapore's financial sector. Then, we're going to zoom way in on the main tool they use, their tax incentive playbook. We'll see how they've set it up with a tiered system, how that system is always changing, and then finally we'll zoom back out to look at a new global challenge that might just change the rules of the game for good.
All right, Section 1, a financial heavyweight. Before we get into the weeds on tax policy, you really have to appreciate the sheer size and weight of this industry.
I mean, the numbers here really do tell the story. The financial sector makes up a whopping 14.3% of the entire country's GDP. It's home to more than 2,000 financial institutions. We're talking global banks, insurance giants, specialized fund managers, you name it. And this whole massive operation is overseen by one very powerful regulator, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, or MAS.
So, the big question is, how do you attract and, just as importantly, keep all these huge global players in one place when the competition is so fierce? Well, that brings us right to Section 2, the Tax Incentive Playbook. This is the core strategy we're really digging into today. At the very heart of this playbook is something called the Financial Sector Incentive Scheme, or FSI for short. Now, what's so smart about this is how simple the concept is. It's basically the government's toolkit, and it offers financial companies a deal. The deal is, if you run specific, high-value business activities right here in Singapore, we'll give you a really nice discount on your corporate tax rate. Simple as that. You know, this scheme didn't just appear out of nowhere. Back around 2004, the government took a look around and realized they had this tangled, messy web of all these different incentives for different things. The FSI was designed to fix that. The goal was to clean everything up, make the rules way simpler and more flexible, and get super strategic about what kinds of activities they wanted to bring in, like new high-growth services, while also making sure the big, established players didn't just pack up and move somewhere else. And this is where the strategy gets really, really clever. So let's jump into Section 3 and see how they do it. Playing in tiers. See, Singapore doesn't just offer one flat discount to everyone. They've built this much more sophisticated system. Honestly, the easiest way to get your head around this is with an analogy. Just think of it like gold, silver, and bronze medals at the Olympics. Not all financial activities are seen as equal in the government's eyes. They offer different levels of rewards depending on how valuable they think that specific activity is for Singapore's economy. And this table just lays it out perfectly. Right at the top, you've got the enhanced tier. That's your gold medal. This is for the really high-growth, high-value-add stuff, like capital markets and derivatives. And for that, you get a special tax rate of just 10%. Then you've got the standard tier for the more mature but still super important activities like lending, which gets a 13.5% rate. And just recently, they added a basic tier at 15%. So the key takeaway here is pretty clear. The more cutting-edge and desirable the business is, the bigger the tax break you get. Of course, for the companies on the inside, it's not quite as simple as just getting a discount check. Behind the scenes, it's actually incredibly complex. Their finance departments have to painstakingly track and sort every single dollar of income and every expense to figure out which bucket and which tax rate it falls into. And that brings us to a really important point. This whole playbook, it isn't carved in stone, which leads us to Section 4, an evolving game. Singapore is constantly tweaking the rules to make sure it stays ahead. I mean, just look at this timeline. The FSI gets rolling in 2004, but fast forward to 2024, and you see the government actually doubled the tax rate for that top-tier stuff, from 5% all the way up to 10%. Then in 2025, they're bringing in that new 15% basic tier. What this shows you is that the FSI is a living, breathing policy. It gets actively managed and adjusted to fit whatever is happening in the global economy, and the whole thing's already been locked in till at least 2028.
But now, a massive new player has just walked onto the field, and this one could fundamentally change the rules of the game for everybody. So let's zoom back out for our last section, the next global challenge.
So what is this new challenge? It's the global minimum tax. This is a huge international agreement, and it's designed to make sure that the really big multinational companies, we're talking ones with revenues over 750 million euros a year, pay a minimum tax rate of 15%, no matter where they operate. And that, as you can imagine, is a direct challenge to any incentive scheme, like Singapore's, that offers special rates below that 15% floor. So what's Singapore's next move in the playbook? Well, they're not waiting around. They've already passed a new law for what's called a domestic top-up tax. And starting in 2025, this will make sure that if a company's tax rate drops below 15% because of incentives, Singapore itself will collect the difference to bring it up to 15%. That way, the extra tax money stays in Singapore instead of getting paid to another country. It's a very strategic defense. And that leaves us with the million-dollar question for the future. In this new world with a global tax floor of 15%, simple, low-tax rate deals are losing their punch. So can clever, strategic incentives like the FSI still evolve to give Singapore that critical edge? Or, in this brand new era of global finance, is the country going to need a whole new playbook to stay at the top of its game?